here's a quick thought for you. Here's what I'm thinking about today, and I want to hear your thoughts and ideas as well. Let's chat about it. Screen time, right? Media. How are you handling this with your kids? Especially for those of us that are homeschooling. Um, what are the screen time policies that you have in your home? Or do you have any? Are you worried about it? Are you concerned at all about your kids spending hours on YouTube or video games or whatever? Um, I have a bunch of questions about this because for us right now, this is like the bane of my existence. This is exactly the argument that we are having every day in my home. And so, full disclosure, I'm I'm at my wit's end. I've tried a lot of different things. Initially, we were a no screen family, no TV. We actually never really had a TV. We still don't, but we introduced laptops and we always had a desktop computer because of both me and AJ's work. And um, now the kids have iPads, Chromebooks. Our oldest son, who's 15, has an iPhone. Um, you know, it's one of those things where it's like I feel like maybe we've opened Pandora's box. We've allowed the devil into our home. And now it's really hard to get them to regulate themselves. There's a ton of data out there showing that these things affect the way that our kids learn, that they have an impact on their brain development. But what's not clear in the data is what the long term effects really are. We know that, their attention spans get kind of manipulated and um, they get a certain kind of rush, a dopamine rush, almost like a hit of dopamine, like a drug, when they use these devices. But it's not clear if that leads to long term patterns like we would see in substance use or substance addiction. There's some data that correlates these devices and the frequent use of these devices, especially in adolescence, with depression and anxiety. So heightened likelihood of depression and anxiety, but it's not, a clear causal connection. So I know I'm going totally psych nerd on you right now, but these are the kinds of things that I think about as um, someone who studies psychology and as someone who also tends to come from a research perspective. It's not just, me as a mom, but it's also me as a researcher, trying to think about these things objectively, but then also not objectively because I care about my kids very personally. It's very close to home for me. So I think I also tend to get worried about how the incessant focus on screen time and the anticipation of getting to be on a game can kind of make them dull people. I mean, I have found that my kids become much less interesting and much less interested in other activities, hobbies, relationships, when they are super focused on just getting to play another game or watch another show online. They lose their ability to be creative and to entertain themselves in innovative ways, like going outside and building something or discovering something new in the garden, or just, actually having a conversation with a sibling or another member of our community. They lose interest in that, and all they want to focus on is more screen time. And that to me is the part that is most disturbing and reminds me the most of substance abuse. So we've had different policies, right? So we try to contain it, limit the number of hours, 2 hours max. that each kid is allowed to be on a device. Actually, for the younger ones, we say an hour because 2 hours is a lot of time for them to stare at a screen with images constantly moving across the screen. I feel like that is not good for them. It's way too stimulating. But then, with the teenager, he can get his phone taken away if he doesn't do his chores, if he doesn't do his homework, that kind of thing. But, it's again, it's all trial and error. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. It's hard to be consistent because the other reality is that as parents, we are battling an entire billion-dollar industry that has now figured out how to weaponize these devices against us and influence our kids and advertise to them. And there are just certain messages and images in some of the even the children's media, Disney and all that, that is very problematic, especially as conscious folks um, who have a lens towards racial and social justice. I don't appreciate some of the negative imagery of people of color, some of the stereotypical, um, kind of tropes that get played out even in kids' shows. And I also think that there's a lack of positive and diverse representations of people of color. And so that is all wrapped up in this whole screen time question. So it's not just about the screens themselves, but also the messages and the images that come through the screens. What are y'all doing with this? What strategies have you used in your home? What are you working out with your kids? And does that also transfer over to like if they're visiting friends or extended family? How do you navigate that situation? I am curious and I am wanting to have a conversation. Let's open up a discussion and figure out if we can support each other and figuring out things that work for families. Drop a comment and some ideas, and I'll respond. And let's see if we can figure this out together. All right, fam. Thanks for your time.